The second very important reason was diversification. Angola has been a master at playing, well, let's put it in a politically correct way, in using or working with companies originated from different countries, from different zones of political influence, if you will. I remember a time when there was enormous jealousy between Gulf Oil and ELF. Well, that time has passed, but jealousy today is between, of course, the so-called Western companies and the Chinese. So that diversification was only possible because Angola honored their agreements. Again, yet another story of an old man. The Wall Street Journal, when I was living in the States in the early 80s, ran a story which started, this is a country where you can do a deal written on a paper napkin. Of course, that's not the case anymore, but it is very important to, for those of you who are contemplating to invest in the country, that agreements are honored, and today I would say if they have been properly considered, properly negotiated, and of course it goes without say, with the right lawyer at your side. So with the success, challenges have come as well. And the challenges in the oil industry currently are many. They are technical, they are legal, they are managerial, they are political. But I would, just as a evidence of those challenges, I may indicate two situations which I think could make the news in the very near future. First, the new foreign exchange law applicable to the oil industry. This, it was approved early this week, if I'm not mistaken, late last week, if I'm not mistaken, was last Thursday by the Council of Ministers, and is still to be submitted to the National Assembly. I'm sure in the audience there are people who can confirm that that is the case, which I mean that has been approved, but it still needs to be basically rubber stamped, because, as you know, the National Assembly is in the National Assembly, the ruling MPLA party has an absolute majority that is quite close to 86%, if I'm not mistaken. A second one that I'm sure will make the news, a second situation which reflects the challenges of the Angolan oil and gas industry, is the bidding for the new Kwanza Basin pre-salt blocks. It's a number of blocks, and some of you may know that there was an international tender which started in 2007, late 2007, 2008, and that, according to Sonangol sources, has been cancelled by decision of the Council of Ministers, and a new bidding process is underway, and according to a industry information bulletin based in Angola, which is pretty well known, Petroleum Brief, before the end of the year, the blocks will be awarded. So that's the first idea. The second idea, and I'm afraid...
If you can wrap it up, and then we'll...
I'm running out of time. But so I'll stay with just this second idea, which is there are... with the new foreign exchange law, there will be, first of all, the need for anywhere between $6 and $10 billion, I'm told, again, many in the audience know this subject better than me, will go through the Angolan financial system and therefore it will create a number of situations where probably foreign exchange reserves will be used to partner or to allow partnership with foreign investors. That's still a guess, but my educated or not so educated guess. There will be, and we can address that later on, many opportunities in downstream, in the upstream, and I'll stay with this, and probably we'll have the opportunity to address those opportunities in more detail in a few.
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much, Agostinho. So if I could hand over to Hugo Azevedo from Standard Bank for your opening comments and thoughts about the energy sector in Angola.
Sure, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. Just to kind of take off where Dr. Agostinho started just now, I get the feeling from a lot of what the panelists have been discussing today that there is almost a perception that Angola wants to be a crook, or Angolans do things on purpose. So I wanted to make two quick points before I get into the energy sector, and that is that most of the majority of the population is under 16 years old. So that gives you an idea of what they've been able to do in their lives to now. And then in terms of a 27-year civil war, that doesn't really create a whole lot of skills capacity. And so there are a limited amount of people that have a skill set that enable the government to execute its plans, and that will lead to bottlenecks and lead to a whole lot of other issues. And so this perception that is in the newspapers a lot, and I know it sells newspapers, that Angola is a terrible place is not because people intend it to be, or the Angolans are doing anything on purpose. It is a function of its recent history. So in my view, there is a lot of goodwill in the country, there's a lot of goodwill in government, and we're seeing a lot of the fruits of that coming through. We see that particularly then in the energy sector. Angola's got massive potential in the energy sector, particularly hydropower, more recently than in the gas sector as well. There is a plan, is the good news, for restructuring this sector, and that plan is already in execution in some ways. I've been involved in Angola now for just over 6 years, and a lot of that time was spent on hydropower projects, dominated to some extent by the large Brazilian construction companies. So Angola's got 3 grids. It's got the north, central, and southern grid. And some of the issues that they have at the moment is that the grids are not linked, and so there are some massive projects underway in terms of linking the grids. There are issues where they have significant power, for instance, that will go into Luanda, but the substations and all the infrastructural equipment are quite old and need to be upgraded, and there are projects for that. There are some projects underway now where some new production capacity will be coming to the fore soon, and they need to get the transmission lines into some of the major cities to benefit from that power. And so, we're involved in some of those projects, and we'd love to be involved in a few more. Then separately, the restructuring in the energy sector at a ministerial level is focused on trying to get more private sector involvement into the energy sector, particularly electricity then. And so that's into breaking it up between production, transport, and distribution, which would then enable private sector involvement in these projects. And that is underway. Included in that are several mini hydro projects, which were alluded to before, which is significant in this country. I read somewhere that I think it's the World Bank did some research at one stage and said that there's a very direct relationship between the investment in energy and the GDP growth of a country, in Africa in particular. And so for every dollar spent in the energy sector, you'd add $1 to your GDP. And so with the massive requirements that are evident across Africa and in Angola as well, that'll show the direct benefit to those economies of these plans going ahead. A few more points quickly. There is a lot happening in downstream. Nowadays, if you drive around Luanda, you're starting to see a few petrol stations being built. Pumangol is all over the place. Sonangol's got a few other partnerships. Galp is doing some things. So there is some development in the downstream area as well. And then I had, the LNG project, the massive $9 billion Angola LNG project in the north of the country, which is using the energy that was being flared, converting it into gas. That's going to lead down into gas thermal plants that are being considered now as well. That's going to lead to more exports. It is not oil, it's an energy export, but a lot of that gas will be exported out to the States. And then there are projects in the renewable energy sector as well. So there are projects we're aware about in the solar sector. Angola obviously has a lot of sun, as much of Africa does. And we wouldn't be surprised if in the near future there's even wind projects out in the Namib Desert, for instance, which is quite likely to be of quite good potential for that kind of project. And then currently, I think the installed capacity is about 1 megawatts, and there's 1,000 megawatts in the country, and there are plans afoot that we heard of from the Energy Ministry to increase that up until 2016 to 4,000 megawatts, which is estimated to cost around $18 billion. So a country with massive requirements, massive potential, and who in due course, I know, plan to be an exporter of energy to the region.
Thank you, Hugo. That's, I think, a very good summary of the main different areas of Angola's energy sector by our three panelists. So I'd like to open up to questions. Are there any questions to start us off? Yes, at the front.